Welcome back to Turn Down for What, your source for EV news and updates. Like and subscribe for more content like this episode. Let's dive on in.
All right, welcome back to Turn Down for What. We have a special episode today because while Jesse and Josh are away, I get to take control and have a little bit of nepotism and bring my family into the podcast. Josh is having a great time with his family, following my inspiration. I'm sure he is off to Disney World and then is taking a cruise. So he's having a blast. So we have hijacked the podcast this week, and I have brought on my sister Carolyn to come and share her experience with EVs. She was actually the matriarch. She was the pioneer of EV technology in the Bow family, as it were. She way before me was into electric vehicles. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then I posted this morning my video about getting to drive her BMW iX. So she took the risk of letting me behind the wheel, which was amazing to get to play with. And I've gotten to try that a couple times now, spend some time with it, but not nearly as much as she has. So I'm going to talk about that. That video kind of left off now where this podcast takes over. So if you've watched that video and you've kicked over to this, thanks for joining us. If you haven't seen that video, be sure to go to Bow Family EV on YouTube. We will leave a link up here in a corner, I think here or something. Click on that. After you watch this, go back, rewind, watch it a second time, click on this, and then we'll leave it at the end of the video and down in the comments as well. So check out that BMW experience. But let's start off with what did I miss? Because obviously I've had a couple days of driving it, but you've had a couple months now.
Yes, I've had it since November of 24.
So what are the things that I missed and left out that I just didn't notice?
Well, one of the things we showed the center console, right under there is a pad, and that's the wireless charging. So that's usually where I rest my phone. There's another place in the center as well with a little cubby thing where if you don't need to charge it, you can just rest it there and you can have it facing you. The passenger side has something similar to that. So if you want just nice little places just to rest a phone.
Do
Things
you find
like that.
does it keep up with the charging speeds? I know with the Lightning, when I put mine on there for wireless charging, if I'm using like Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, it drains faster than it can recharge. Just does it keep up or
I haven't noticed. I haven't looked. So I haven't
yeah,
noticed that at the end of a drive that it's less.
yeah. They seem
Yeah.
so cool, these wireless charging pads, and then I end up plugging them in half the
Yeah.
time anyway. But it,
Yeah. It has a wired as well where you can do that, where when you're resting it in the middle, where it's up and facing you, then you can it has a little hole at the bottom where you put the cord through that. So
yeah,
that's an option if you don't want the wireless. I usually drive it around the neighborhood. So it's not like I need a big charge usually,
so you
but I
haven't
do have the cords if I need it.
road tripped it across California or the U.S. yet?
No, I think going to your house was the longest ride so far.
Nice. And I think that's the way most people use their EVs, right? Day to day.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people, I think it's overhyped when people talk about the superchargers or the EA
Yeah.
chargers. It definitely impacts a segment of folks that are traveling long distance or use it in that way. But for just the everyday person, you're using it exactly how most people would.
Yeah, I would say like I've had an EV since probably 2012 was probably my first EV. And in that time, I've only taken a few long road trips where I really absolutely had to charge. I've taken it to Folsom and back for work. I've taken it to Tahoe, where I charged it in Folsom. And then I've taken one down to Disneyland as well.
Awesome.
Those are the three that I've done, and I've had EVs for over 10 years, and that's really the only three. Other than that, if I'm doing anything else, much further, I'm usually using either a hybrid car or an ICE car completely.
Yeah, and that's similar to what I've done. I mean, my normal week is just me going back and forth from, my house to a city that's literally 10, 15 minutes away. So 20, 25 mile drive. I'm in the same four city kind of area. And then I head down to Santa Clara for 49er games or down to see you and at your house or
Those are things you don't need the supercharger
no.
for. Like as long as I can get from San Jose to San Francisco or from San Jose to Monterey and back and not need to charge it again. And generally I like to have a range where I can do that, then I'm fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing that I've noticed too, is even with the standard range Lightning, I just, never need to go that far. There's the couple like you said, I did a trip to Disneyland recently, and did a Vegas trip once and a Long Beach trip. And then a couple Sacramentos. And if I drive normal, I can get to Sacramento and back on one charge, even with the standard range. So for most people, that's more than enough. And then it's just more about the ride comfort and what you enjoy in a driving experience, which is different for everybody. So subjective, and what you like. So what are some of the other things I missed? I know there's some interesting technology that I didn't get to play with. Tell me about some of those other highlights that kind of specific to BMW even. Some of that stuff I'd never heard of before.
There's some stuff that are just basic that all BMWs generally have had for years. I've had friends with BMWs. It's like the kick motion to open and close the trunk. I always was just like, oh, that's no big deal. I can always use my hands, but I actually do use it now that I have it quite a bit. Just like Costco the other day, and I'm just like, okay, well, let me just pile this on and just do a little kick thing. However, I have noticed that will be triggered sometimes by my cord when I go to plug it in. So sometimes I'm like, oh, wait, why did that just open or close? It's because it triggered it by the cord. Um, it has the roof. It's a big window up on the roof, and that has I think it's called like monochromatic thing
Yeah.
going on where you hit a button and it'll basically fog it over with electrons or something. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
an expert here. Uh,
The ID Buzz has one of those, the big glass roof, and it just goes opaque.
yeah, it goes opaque and then
Nice.
it blocks out the sun. And even with it, when it's on the regular way, the kids haven't really complained about the sun being in their eyes. So that's been great. Um, I let's see, the front of it has what some people call the big bunny teeth.
Yeah.
Um, and that is it's a plastic that if you get little nicks on it, it has some self-healing technology where basically it melts and fuses back together with heat, and that can happen over a period of time if it's just outside exposed to normal sunlight, or you can put some heat to it. I don't know, maybe hair dryer, I've not tried it, to where it will melt it a little bit faster, and that
That's
is a self-healing type of thing.
That's pretty cool because there's a lot of people that put PPF protection or some type of thing on the front of their cars, especially with the Teslas and the things with those blunt noses. And we don't have grills, traditional grills, the way that a gas car would for air to flow through it. It's this solid surface. Sometimes it's made to look like a grill, but there aren't any holes there. So it just collects bugs, it collects rocks and chips, and that's pretty cool that it can self heal itself, especially with a little bit of heat. That would be cool. I'm not going to go and scratch the front of your car to see it, but the
Please
first
don't.
time, first time it happens, I want to see what that before and after looks like because that's some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I will let you know if I notice one. I generally don't notice it that much either, though. I've taken a car to the car wash and someone's like, ew, your car has all these nicks. I'm like, well, I don't really care.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. When you have kids, you in life, it just is you have to just kind of roll with it sometimes.
Yeah, that's one of the fun things about having a truck is I don't have to get super bougie with it. Whereas, like when you first got your Model S, it's like,
Oh,
oh, this
oh, that one. I didn't want anybody touching that one. I
don't
don't
want
think
to.
I ever let you drive that one.
No, I never got to drive the S. You park it out in the middle of nowhere to make sure nobody parks next to it. No door dings. So it's a different thing. And it's funny you mentioned about the charge cable triggering that rear hatch because that was one of the first things I noticed is how strange to me that they put that charge port door all the way. And I know because you've had the S and the X. We'll talk about some of the other cars that you've had. Those charge port doors are always on the driver's side rear. And so I know you've got the Tesla universal wall connector that's right there. And now
Yeah.
you've got to kind of stretch it across. So I can totally see. I would guess that would only happen well, I guess it would happen with the key fob, or if you have your phone as key, it thinks you're there, or and then the hose, the cable is triggering that sensor.
Yeah, yeah. Just it's the movement of it. So it's only when it's not normal if it's just sitting there, it's not going
Yeah.
to, but it's the movement as I bring it over and it goes under the car to do that. So
Yep.
interestingly, my first one was a Ford, and I had I when we got this house, we knew we wanted EV, particularly because I we ended up finding a house further away from work than I wanted to commute. And so, I wanted to get an EV so that I can get the carpool sticker and I could shorten my
Yeah.
commute. And so we installed we had an electrician come out and install a charger uh, before we even had the EV. And we did put it on the most convenient place, which was on the right side of the garage. And so we ended up getting a Ford, and it was fine because it was right there on that right side. It was only recently in the last year that we paid an electrician to get the Tesla universal one, so I could charge either with the regular Tesla one and then had the converter built in um, to do non-Tesla charging. And we had an electrician come in and route it over the garage to get it on the other side, the Tesla side, just to then within 6 months change cars. So
Yeah, that's awesome. You go for years with it being on that side.
I've always had it on the wrong side. So, I'm just used to this now.
Yeah, that is too funny. And the what year was that? That Ford Focus. It's funny because I just came across a Ford Focus just a couple days ago at Starbucks, and it reminded me of that first car. What year was that?
My little commuter car. I think it was 2012. Might have
Yeah.
been 2012 or 2013. I'd have to look it up.
Was that a
But
lease program, a special lease
it
program, wasn't it?
it was a lease. So I at the time had the car that I still love more than anything in the world
The
was my
Lexus.
Lexus.
Well, I
My
remember you
Lexus
getting the
IS
Lexus.
350. I still think that's my favorite car I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to give up that car. And so I just wanted a commuter car. So I went out looking for an electric car that I could do as cheaply as I could for a lease. I had never leased before. I hate leasing. I advise everyone, including you,
Yeah.
buy a car, don't lease. Um, but I just wanted a commuter car, and I knew I'd get rid of it after it went up because I just wanted it for the carpool sticker. And so I got that. I think it was like $100 a month or maybe a little bit more. I was going between that and the Leaf, and went to both dealerships in a day. And the Leaf guy was just a little ewy.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to deal with ewy. Um, just car salesmen are not my best friends. And the Ford guy was like, yeah, we can get it into you today, and da da da. And so a little bit of haggling there, and I had that. So I had that as just I think a 3-year lease. It was pretty short lease.
Yeah, it's I'm sure it paid for itself really in gas savings alone, and then with the carpool sticker, like you said, I mean, it's time is valuable, so
I mean, at
that's
the
huge.
time, I had free charging at work. That ended up
Nice,
changing to 10 cents a kilowatt hour, and that's still going on actually
still
at work.
great.
So that's still great. At the time, it was not cheaper than when they thought it would be seven, because it was 7 cents an hour at night before PG&E raised everything, and now it's god awful.
Over
But
34 cents now, even at the lowest times. Over
back then
60.
it was
Yeah,
seven at night,
yeah.
and
Wow.
so it was very cheap. But now the battery of that, I'm starting off with, I think it was like 70 miles
Yeah,
is my range. And so even going back and forth to work, that was, 60 miles, not even 60 miles. That was more like 40-ish miles. Still made me a little nervous. I'm somebody who never let the gas go below a quarter.
quarter. Yep.
And so uh, having a range under 100, starting at under 100, like freaked me out. I eventually just kind of got used to it, because I literally was just doing there and back. But if somebody was like, "Hey, let's go out to lunch," I'm like, "You're driving. I'm not.
Yeah.
I
You
don't want
need
to. I don't
you
want to
got to
risk."
make it home.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that car did give me a lot of problems. It was gave me errors. It was in the shop for an extended period of time. I think 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
And I complained, and I'm like, I said, I bought this for the carpool sticker. So I'm going without a carpool sticker. That's not cool. And I'm paying $100 a month to not do it. So they ended up giving me a loaner leaf, interestingly enough, that had a sticker. So I could still do that. And then they ended up crediting me the $100 a month. So while it was in the shop, while they were trying to figure it out, and they replaced thing after thing after thing. They had somebody fly in from Chicago. They were consulting with them all the time because they just didn't have that many at the time. Like,
Yeah.
was their, offering. But eventually got fixed and then came back. Other than that, I had no problems with it. There's no maintenance. There's, no real issue. But that was an extended period of time where I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. I was going to go a different route after that. And I went the Model S after that.
Yeah. So then tell us about that, because then you went and transitioned to something that's completely the opposite. You went from $100 a month, kind of a legacy manufacturing from Ford, who's just kind of dipping their toes in it. Really, that's their first. I mean, there was a Ford Ranger for a little bit that led acid before that, but otherwise, that's kind of the first effort at it. And then you go to a Tesla. Totally, tell us about that experience, because and what year was that?
So that was more like 2015-ish, I
Yeah.
think. And so are my numbers going together with the 3 years?
Yeah, that makes sense. 2012, 2015. Yeah. So,
and so when I did that, there's a couple of thoughts there. One, I've always been I buy cheap and what I can afford, or I buy nice and I save up for the nice. And so, I had the Chevy Cavalier before I had the Lexus. I don't do anything in the middle. I don't want an Accord. I want cheap that gets me, it's practical, or I want the thing that I really want. And so I went from the Focus, where it's like, this was cheap and practical, saved up, bought the S. So I wanted, after the Ford thing, I wanted a company that knew EVs. And if there was a problem, because EVs were still so new, that I wouldn't fear there was something wrong and they didn't know what the heck to do with it. And so Tesla knew what the heck they were doing. And it was just an innovative car. Never seen some of the stuff that they had before. And so I went that route. And at the time it was only the S available, other than I think the previous Roadster. It was really just the S. X was still in production, like not in production. They were making it in the factory. So when I went to go pick it up, and interestingly, I picked it up having never driven this car ever.
And you went straight to the factory in Fremont, right?
I went straight to the factory in Fremont to pick it up. The guy greets you. You get a factory tour at the time. And in the factory tour, we got to see the X, which was amazing because it's like it wasn't out on the street yet. And so we're like, whoa. And they're like, you can't take any pictures. You can't do anything. But like, but people knew what the X had looked like. And so, we got to see all the huge machines and how they move things. And they explain like, hey, we use the same paint for your car, every little piece. We tag the paint and we say, and then so like, I was like blown away by the detail and the really seeking to get, quality out of it. So I'm like, yes, I made the right decision. This is great. Wonderful. And then, we get to the car and I'm like, okay, dude, I've never driven this vehicle before. I don't know how to drive this car. And I'm like, will you teach me? He's like, oh yeah. I'm like, am I the only insane person that bought an expensive car like this that never test driven it? He's like, no, it's happened before. Don't worry about it.
Still does. People they buy them. They've never driven them. They just go right in. It's yeah.
I don't know. But I mean, and I knew other people that had Teslas. I had been in a Tesla. I just never driven it myself. And so he shows me, how to do things. And quickly you learn, if you gun it, you're going to get a little bit of whiplash. So yeah, we did that and took the car home, and I had really not many problems with it. I think the only problem I had with it is I was backing out one day and I heard a snap and I'm like, that didn't sound right. and we went in, and some big metal piece had snapped in two. And they're like, oh, you must have gone over some massive bump or something. I'm like, no, it literally happened in the Babies R Us parking lot. And maybe it was a speed bump, but I was backing up.
Those
I back
wicked,
up that fast.
those wicked Babies R Us speed bumps, man. They're
Yeah.
notorious.
But you know what? I didn't have many problems with that car. I loved it. I ended up getting rid of that one
And I think
because my
now that one
Mhm.
had the free supercharging at the time, didn't it? You
Yes.
could go because that was a big part of the package too. Was you could go to any of these
Hmm.
superchargers
Yeah.
and for free.
Yeah.
Um,
And then remember, there's not that many. There weren't as many then,
yeah,
but there were, critical ones. The Folsom one was there because that's the car that I took on the trips. I took that one to Tahoe. I took that one to Disneyland.
yeah.
And so it was at Harris Ranch. It was in Folsom. We had no problems. And at the time, there were no threes or Ys, and so there were not that many people using these superchargers. And
Kind of an exclusive club early on, you know?
it was, yes. I enjoyed that time.
Yeah, you'd see another driver, and it's a lot like when I see a Lightning driver, or when somebody like there's just so
Yes.
few of them. I mean, you're just like,
Yeah.
oh my God, hey, and
I
it's
got out of
exciting.
a ticket this way because the
Nice.
cop was like, "Ooh, this is a nice car." And it was the first and only ticket I think I've ever gotten out of in my life. All he did was a fix it ticket for not having a front license plate.
Yeah,
And
California.
yeah, but I didn't have to do the speeding ticket. So, and I was just like, oh, I'm sorry. And he's like, yeah, it's so easy to speed in this thing that don't worry about it. Okay. Yeah.
Shout out to Tony Pham, who makes the Quick Bandit front license plate removable attachment. I'll leave a link for his stuff down. If you also don't have a front license plate, you can have that in your frunk, and then when the cop pulls you over, you can be like, "Oh, I forgot to put it on." Pop it right on the front. He makes this great product because nobody wants, especially on the front end of a Tesla, they don't want that big ugly license plate. You don't want to drill into it. Some people put stickers. They make stickers now that go on the front.
The X had the
Um,
sticker. Yes.
yeah, yeah. And then so this guy Tony from Tesla Owners Club East Bay, he literally patented and developed and sells this amazing thing called the Quick Bandit, and it goes right on the front of the Teslas, and he can remove it so you can go without the license plate. But then if there's a situation, you can pop it right back on again. Um, I recently had the front of mine when they had to do a repair on the front bumper. They forgot to put it back on, and I have not drilled into that front bumper. I've left it off. We're gonna see how long I get away with that. But inevitably, somebody will see it and probably give me a fix it ticket. But I'll have to see if Tony can
Oh,
make a quick bandit for the Lightning.
it's not that big of a deal. Yep.
Yeah.
So then I got rid of the S after 3, 4 years for a couple of reasons. One, that carpool sticker was coming up, and I
Yeah.
needed another carpool sticker.
Yeah, and for
And
those that don't
so,
know, they like when you get the carpool sticker, it only lasts for a few years and then it expires. So as yours was expiring, and so that was your big, that was the second one, right? So you had the Focus was one, and then you
yes,
reapplied for the S,
yes,
and then as that's coming to expire, you're like, all right, I'm gonna I'm gonna upgrade the car. Not because there's anything wrong with the car, but I need that carpool sticker.
I need the carpool sticker.
Awesome. I love hearing the motivation.
So at that time, also, I had had another child.
Yeah.
And when I have relatives come in from out of the country, I needed a car that could hold more people. And so we were looking for a third row. And so the Tesla X, the Model X, kind of fit over all the bills. I was really nervous about the wing doors, and I didn't trust that it wouldn't knock into something else. I never found a situation where that happened. No matter how narrow that thing knew how to go and where to go, and opened up. And it was a godsend having a couple of kids, having the carrier that I have to put in and click
Yes.
in, never having to bend over, having plenty of headspace, with the exception of when it would rain pretty hard.
Even then,
It could,
you had those falcon wing doors above your head, right?
yeah, yeah, but I mean, it would still kind of come in a little bit, and sometimes like it just how water will adhere to things and then go in places you don't expect. It sometimes would get into the seat a little bit, but not too much, and it doesn't
Yeah.
rain too bad here. regular.
All those benefits of a minivan without that form factor, because that was a big motivation when we had our kids was the minivan with those sliding doors.
Yep.
You get a lot of those benefits. It's crazy that those Falcon Wing doors just don't hit anything. Tight
They don't hit
spaces.
anything.
That
So
had to
it's
be
funny now
huge.
that I have, when you're talking about a different car and the kids don't have the Falcon ring, that, they're trying to get in and out of the car. I now have to be like, don't nick the car next to you
You got to
because
teach them.
I just hit a button and there's no problem. And I'm like, no, 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 we don't have that car anymore, guys. So
Yeah, it's crazy that long ago. I mean, it's almost 10 years ago that they came out with that. Um, and it was pioneering back then, but even today, 10 years later, it is
nobody
still
has,
unmatched.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, everything about the doors, I loved. I loved the fact that I could get all the kids out and then I could walk away and I can click my button. So I still had the fob thing. Um, the X was built in 2018, I think.
Yeah.
So it still had had the little things where I could still do, I don't know, the sticks, all of those sticks. And I still had the full circle
Yeah.
steering wheel. So I was enough old school for somebody, like me doesn't want all the weird stuff. But the things that I loved was I could click that and all the doors would close at once and I can just walk away as it locked. I love that, particularly in COVID and lockdown, I'm like, what did I just touch in the store and everything? I can get into my car. I go to my car, the door opens for me. I
Yeah.
sit down. I put a little bit of the stuff on my hands to sanitize myself, and then I'd touch the brake with my foot, and the door would close. So I could get in my car having never touched anything and sanitize myself. And I'm like, here we go. Have a HEPA filter in there. When there's smoke is coming, 2020, we're in
Sure.
lockdown and everything's red outside. The smoke was insane. Put
The
on my little HEPA filter and I can go anywhere and I had fresh, clean air.
Yeah, it has
So,
that biohazard function that
mhm.
Tesla's does so well, and the fires
I
that
would
were
even use it going next to the hospital, man. I'm like, oh
yeah
my God, I'm next to the hospital and there's a big line of people trying to test for COVID. Shoom, hit that little biohazard button. I'm like, okay.
yeah you driving down through Coalinga like you talked about the
Oh, the
port
cows. Yeah.
yeah the cows down there on I-5 the poor folks that are down in Southern California now. I mean, even if you're not directly
Yeah.
affected, like we experienced when we had the big fires up here, you get that ash everywhere, you get that smell everywhere.
Yeah.
That's a huge benefit. Tesla just is so far ahead on these things. So,
Yeah.
um, you
Oh,
know,
and then, I didn't even tell you. I think it was with the S. When I bought the S, it didn't have any of the highway self-driving
right.
stuff. It just had adaptive cruise control. And then overnight, it gave the download, and we're like, let's go out and see how this works. And it then could change lanes by itself,
Like a
and
whole new car.
it could stir. Yeah, yeah, it could stir. Yeah, it was a whole new car. Now, neither of the car had it for full self-driving. They didn't. I could have gotten like the technology to put into the X, but it didn't have the right hardware. So I never had full self-driving on any of the cars, but just the regular automated driving was
Yeah,
fine.
autopilot. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so now there's the big question, right? We got about, 5 or 6 minutes left here before we wrap up today. Um, so with all that said, with all those amazing things, right?
Yep.
The supercharging and the doors and closing and the Falcon wings and
Why
all
did I go
this,
to the BMW?
why the BMW? Because
Yeah.
yeah, what tell us about that?
Yeah, I was honestly with the Tesla, there's enough things that were just annoying me at the end. Um, and some of it was like Apple CarPlay. If I go in and my other car had the Apple CarPlay, I could plug it in. I had a meeting to go to, or I put in like I was going to go to a destination, and it would just be like, "Yep, now I'm going." I have my own phone, my own songs in there, my playlist. That's all very convenient. I liked having the Apple CarPlay. I just prefer
Yeah.
that. I prefer the navigation of it as well. And so Tesla doesn't have that. And so I was looking for that. Um, the the road noise in the Tesla was obnoxious. If
Yep.
I was in meetings, and so at this point, I'm not always working from home. I'm going back and forth. My carpool sticker is done now, and I am now commuting longer and I have to be in meetings because I still have to leave to get the kids or drop them off first. And those meetings, people couldn't hear me. I
Yeah.
could barely hear them. I would be putting up the volume to max. The road noise is obnoxious
Yep.
in the X. No question. I just, it was driving me insane. So let me see. Let's see. Why do I prefer let me see. Parking. They're big cars. The iX and the X are about the same size cars.
Yeah.
I don't claim to be the best parker in these big things. I like smaller cars. And so having the 360 camera is really important to be able to navigate. And so I have that once again in my other car. And so to go back every time and I'd be like trying to park, it was just a pain.
These are the things though. These are the things people, a lot of people,
everyday things.
Yes. They talk about CarPlay. They talk about 360 cameras, backup sensors even are little things that people miss it for as technologically amazing as Tesla is.
It uses the cameras for the windshield wipers, for the automated windshield wipers, and sometimes it's wonky on the Tesla.
Phantom braking, all that stuff with the cameras.
Yeah, the phantom braking I would have. I mean, I haven't driven it too long, this iX, but I haven't had any phantom braking.
Yeah.
And
I did notice it is a quiet ride. I'm used to that with the Lightning, and then it's always crazy when I get into a Tesla. They've done better with the refresh Model 3. I think the refresh Model Y will be similar with better road noise handling. But you're right. Those Teslas are noisy, especially on conference calls.
Yeah. Yeah. The battery range also, I had it for so many years.
Yeah.
That
degradation.
It had degraded. I didn't have the biggest battery to begin with. And so like going to San Francisco and back, I found range anxiety to creep back up.
Yeah.
And so I wanted something that could go the 300 miles because I was sitting at like 180, 200. And even that, it would say that, but then it would degrade way more than what it said my range was. So I could never trust my range either.
It's because of how fast you drive.
Maybe. But the BMW, so far, like I haven't gone on a long one, so I want to go on a longer road one. But everything that I've heard is that they overpromise. I mean, the under promise and over deliver. Yeah,
they do.
So they'll say your range is 300, but you can get 320 out of it. And so I wanted that. Just my nature is more like that. I love having cup holders again.
Yeah,
I do have the cup holders in front, so I like that. So what did I miss about the Tesla though? I've talked about a couple of things that I really liked. The app is so much better.
Yep.
The BMW app, it's okay, but like I want to just be able to quickly be like, let's turn on the car AC before I get into it. I want to be able to see, somebody else is driving it, where they are, how fast they're going, what the destination. I can see all of that. That I can't see in my other app. Like when you were driving it, I had to refresh every time to be like, now where is Chris? Now where is he?
Where's he going with my car?
Yeah. Like I couldn't see how fast you were going. And like on the Tesla one, I knew exactly how fast people were going because I took it into the service and I'm like, dude, what the heck is this guy doing? So the Falcon Wings, of course, the charging network, of course, those are simple things. The location special features, like when I approach my house and the garage door will automatically open. I love that. When I would go to certain locations, I had it to where the suspension would go up because I knew there was a lot of speed bumps.
Yep.
Or like when I go to Costco, I would have to park in some of the smaller spots and I scraped the front one time and I'm like, okay, now we're going to raise our suspension every time. So when I'm parking in a spot, that bumper on the top isn't going to scrape. So there's some of those things, but overall the BMW, it rides better. It drives better. It's a solid car. You feel it.
No rattles, no noises. It's a well put together car. It did drive great.
It turns, it maneuvers really easily. I can turn it around really, really well. I feel like my parking radius it just maneuvers a little bit better. And it's more solid. I feel like the interior is just way better. The quality of it is better. And honestly, I'm hoping for just better customer service. I wanted to, you spend that much on a car. And back in the day, I felt with like the S, I had great quality service. And now there's just so many people with these cars. that you can't feel special anymore, I guess. I don't know. So I wanted to go back to a company that I felt like would really put customer service first and foremost.
Overall, I think I noticed the same things you did with just the overall drive feel. Like all things aside, when you drive it, it's got that quiet feel like I'm used to with the Lightning, and I've been into so many Teslas and even Rivians and some others. You just have so much of the motor noise, so much of the road noise and vibration and things like that. Like, how quickly did you
Yeah.
get in and just be like, oh my God, this just completely feels and sounds different?
Immediately, I mean, it's not even just the road noise, it's the feel on the street. It's, when I was particularly, I would say driving home after I purchased it from the dealer, and that's the first time I'm going on the freeways that I'm most familiar with and where I know all of the particularly loud sections are. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I could hear the children again. Like sometimes it was hard to hear the kids talking to me right behind me. So that was great. I was very happy for that. Oh, talking about in the back, you remember it has the speakers and the headrest in the back?
Yes, yes.
That was not, I mean, I don't sit back there, but that looked cool. So it'd be nice being back there. And just overall, it's just, like I said, having that Lexus. And all through the Teslas, I loved the technology. I loved all of that, but I never felt that high quality and customer service and that I had with that Lexus. So I'm trying to get that back with the BMW. Um,
I think it'll be fun to hear from you on your first long road trip and kind of see how that goes. I know from sitting in it, the one thing that I enjoyed was going into the different drive modes, and the massaging seats came on.
oh yes.
And I definitely don't. Now, the Platinum Lightning had some massaging seats, but mine never had the massaging seats. So it's like a whole different experience when you've got those.
Yeah, I do enjoy a good massaging seat. Our other car, which is a hybrid, had that. And so that wasn't a necessity for me. But when we wanted the buttons on the side with the pre-program um, seat selections, and so that came with the massaging seat. So that was nice. The heating was imperative for me. I had to have the heated steering wheel. I had to have the heated seats. I was used to that in the Tesla, and so I got that. The children are not happy because the back seat does not have the heated seats that they're used to.
Oh,
And so, but they live.
that's all right. They'll toughen them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting the range thing I think too. Because did you have was it a P65, P85? Can't remember what
Oh,
the X was.
the X, I, what was the X? 75.
75. See, I
Yeah.
got them wrong. I got 65 and 85, and I was right down the middle. And so I think that plus the degradation, of course, and I think that's why you ended up going with the plug. What's the plug-in hybrid that you have? The Lincoln?
Yeah, the Lincoln Aviator.
Yeah, and so that one, I think that one can get you on pure battery. How far does that go? 20, 25?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's not very far. You can't go to work and back on that alone. You'd have to recharge it there. But that one, the seats are phenomenal.
Hmm.
Oh my God, I love those seats. They're so comfortable. And the most important thing is it can pull the camper and you get the sticker. You get that carpool sticker.
Everything's about the sticker. This is what we've learned today, guys. The sticker is the motivating factor between what percentage of EV owners is the sticker? If you're in LA, if you're in the Bay Area, I don't know what other parts of the country have these stickers, but it was a huge deal.
But it's all
Absolutely.
gone at the end, at like August of this year.
Yes.
So
Yes. Curious to see if how much controversy comes from that or if people start renewing it in some way, if they bring it back to life. But yeah, our glory years are about to be gone at third quarter of this year.
yeah, thank God I work from home mostly. And basically said, if you make me come in, I'm not. Bye bye.
Oh my goodness. It is a difference, I know it's a big criticism the truck gets is if you go to tow with it, you're gonna get 100 something miles and that's all you're gonna get. And I know you guys take
Yeah.
it out to Yosemite you've been to
Yes. Yep.
and So that's where I think there are still some gaps is when it comes to electric vehicles. These batteries have got to, either get bigger like they do with the Silverado or the new Escalade IQ, the Escalade IC that they have from GM. Those things have huge 200 kilowatt hour batteries, and that's the only way to tow distance. And then you're spending so much money so much time to recharge. And
Yeah, and then the practicality though of it, even if you needed to recharge, the reality is if you have a camper on the back, to take off the camper to then recharge and then put the camper back on and then go, that's going to take so much time. I don't
yep,
want to do that. I'm not going to do that. So it was important that we looked at a car and it really narrowed it down, that can tow the camper, and can get us the sticker. And so there was only like 3 or 4 choices at that point of who could do both, and it had to be hybrid so that I wouldn't have to worry about that. But even with that though, if that battery after it says goes down to 0, it'll recharge itself during that trip and it'll go back and forth between the two. So but nothing's going to beat the Aviator in terms of the horsepower.
comfort.
It's over 600 horsepower. So when we were taking the camper up hills and down and wherever we were going, it was like you weren't even, like you didn't have it back there.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to get an EV with that power that can go the distance, and it's just so convenient. I can drive into a gas station with the camper still attached,
Yep.
fill it up, and keep on going.
I mentioned that with my, when I got to try your car, I had the loaner F-150 from Ford, the STX, and that thing had 900 miles of range on the freeway, 700 around town, and even if you're towing, it's going to go 300-400 miles towing, because
Yeah.
you're not towing at 80 miles an hour. So at that is something that's still a big gap for EVs, and this is where I just think that we're all about on the show is just talking about how do we get butts in seats. And for so many people, when the going all the way back to your first Ford Focus, the idea was for commuting, and a lot of mine is used for commuting. And anybody who wants to use an EV can use it for anything they want to do it if they want to. You have to want that though. It takes a special kind of person to want to go through the hoops and hurdles like you were talking about. Most
Yeah.
people just want to get in their car and go.
And you know what? We camp with another family that they bring their Rivian because they don't have a camper. And
Yeah.
so just the Rivian is where they keep everything. They have the tent, then they're able to use, regular plug-in lights. They have these lights all over the place, and they can heat up their hot water for kettles and everything right in that Rivian. So there's a convenience there of that. So
There.
you can make it what you want.
Everything's a trade-off.
Different, and everybody's going to want, and that's why you need the assortment, and you need, the different options.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's always fascinating to hear what really motivates people, what really drives people. And sometimes we're in denial about that because we think the space age technology is everything. And how could you go any other route? And it sometimes does come back down to the luxury feel, and it does come down to the driving experience. And it doesn't fit for everybody. I mean, there's people that just love the Model 3 because it has that low sporty feel, low to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I always want to sit up higher for me. And so really until the Cybertruck was available, none of the Teslas really felt great for me to drive in. Driving is so visceral, it's so personal. It's not usually a logical decision.
And it changes over a lifetime.
It
Like I
does.
said, I like the smaller cars, and I always have the smaller cars. And I want small and sporty, but I've got a couple kids, and I gotta lug things around, and I gotta put a bunch of stuff in every time I go to Costco, and I need to have that convenience right now. Kids are older and they're out of the house. I'm probably go back to a smaller car, but probably still want an EV because
Yeah.
as you said, I like to drive a little bit fast, and I like that acceleration. And there's a lot to be said for EV in terms of the driving experience of an EV as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But honestly, if I'm doing anything in traffic, I have to have some level of intelligence on my driving because it is just I just can't stand the stop and go traffic, and I just don't want to do it anymore. Oh, interesting. One thing I didn't mention is the Tesla, the self-driving. I could look all around and do whatever I wanted, and the car never got mad at me as long as it felt like I just shake it a little bit.
Yeah.
That and I would just every after few seconds, or if I saw the red light, I just do the little jiggle. The BMW, I haven't ever had to jiggle.
Yeah.
I think it has its sensed where like it knows that my hands are on there, and I like to put my hands at the bottom, and so the Tesla would get really mad at me with my hands down there. The BMW hasn't seemed to get mad at me at all. However, if my eyes wander, and I don't even think it's for that long, it does get very mad at me, and it's like warning, driver distracted. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, I was literally looking at the dash underneath. I wasn't like looking away, or I was, so, but
And
yeah,
that
it's pinged me a few times, and I'm like, okay, I'm not as good as I thought I was.
Yeah, it's got that inductive steering wheel that, man, I wish the Lightning had, because the Lightning, kind of like what you said, but compared to the Tesla, the Lightning is so quiet and planted. It just sticks to the road and it's dead on straight. I mean, you barely have to move the wheel and it is just sticking to the lane where it wants to be. And then my steering wheel will tell me, put your hands on the wheel. And it is on the wheel,
It
but there's
is.
no need to turn it because the road is so straight, or everything's,
Yeah.
and with the
So you're
induction,
false jiggling it a
false
bit.
jiggle.
Yeah.
False jiggle.
Yeah.
Get rid of the false jiggle, guys. Nobody wants to have the false jiggle. But I have to do that in the Lightning. I have to give it the false jiggle. And I
Yes.
did notice that right away in the BMW, that it knows your hands are there.
It
And
knows.
something we did leave out, actually, of the BMW conversation that I noticed right away. You have a heads up display,
Oh,
and that
yes.
is, yeah. Have you gotten
That
used to that?
So this is my first car using the heads up display. The other car, the Aviator, actually has it as well,
Mm,
but I don't drive that as much. The EVs have generally been mine. I always thought it was kitschy, but I actually really like it, particularly when I'm navigating, and I don't have to look over, and it will tell me what lane I'm in and everything. And once again, I've tried it with the BMWs now, and I've tried it with the Apple Play now. I prefer the Apple Play,
yeah.
um, particularly because I haven't figured out how to turn off the sound of BMW. It's like turn right in. I'm like, shut
Yes.
up, listen
Stop
to my
talking to
music.
me.
I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be a little bit less obnoxious then. But it's an excellent turn by turn because I actually can see it, and so it actually is the next generation past what the Aviator has. And so that's the one thing my husband is a little bit jealous of, is that my heads up display is better than his.
Better integration. Yeah. No, I love that.
It's great, and I actually so I've always had polarized sunglasses and can't see it that well, so I've been using my regular glasses. But I'm gonna go to the optometrist pretty soon. I'm gonna be like, give me new sunglasses that are not polarized, and I will be set for summer.
So all said and done, now you've had your different EV experiences, from the Focus to the S to the X, the Aviator, and now your BMW iX. And so you know EVs. You know it from the standpoint of just an everyday commuter, as a mom, as a traveler, as a from all that said and done. Now, looking back, it's been 2.5 months. Any regrets? Do you love your choice still today?
No, I think it was the right decision. It was it's I have outgrown the X. I was ready. Um, this is the car I want. Is this my forever car? Will I love it like I did that IS 350? No, I won't. I mean, it's still a bigger car, and it's
Yeah.
not very sporty. It's still the practical option for my family with the luxury aspect. I mean, it's not, I could get a more practical car, obviously. That's much cheaper, but it gives me what I want at this point in my life. I will one day find that smaller, sporty car that I can just crank up the music and just drive.
Yeah.
Um, but that has more to do with my lifestyle than it does the vehicle. For right now, this is the right vehicle. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's funny to listen. Angela, my wife, I think is really excited for the R2, because the R2 has that kind of Ford Bronco-esque traditional boxy style SUV, and I think she's really excited for that, and she's just waiting and waiting for it. And I think for you make practical decisions until that one can be available. I think for you, it's
Yeah.
the same thing. You're waiting. You're the other end. You don't want the boxy. You don't want the big. It's practical, but at some point, your car. It'll be interesting to see if like keep an eye on like Lucid because Lucid has that mid-size. I think that'll be maybe sporty and it'll still have the luxury of Lucid. I'd be interested to see what you thought of the Gravity if we ever get a hold of one of those. Although that's more of a wagon. People call it an SUV, but it reminds me of Dad's old Volvo, if you remember
Oh,
that.
yes, the
Nobody
blue
wants to,
one.
yeah, nobody wants to call something a minivan. Nobody wants to call something a wagon anymore. You want to call everything an SUV, but
Yeah.
the Gravity's not an SUV. The Mustang Mach E, I love you guys, Mach E guys. I love you. I'm fine calling it a Mustang, but it's not an SUV. Um, so it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what your forever car ends up being. I know it's going to be luxury. I know it's going to be sporty and fast.
Yeah, and
Um,
for me, that's why I like this because it's not like an SUV. It's like this.
yeah,
The first time I saw SUVs that look like that, I always thought it was like a car that they just pumped up like a balloon.
yeah.
Um, and so I mocked it, and now this is the
Now
car
you're in
of
it.
my choice,
Yeah.
purposefully. But eventually I'll go smaller again.
Yep. That's awesome.
But it was
Well,
honestly range was part of that decision. So I was debating, I decided on BMW because I wanted the quality. They had great reviews. They're I and their EVs are well appreciated. And I was looking, like, do I want the i5, which they took an ICE car and then they made it into an EV, or the iX, which is bigger, and then it was always designed as an EV.
yep.
And ultimately, this car had the longer range. I can get over 300, and it's like I honestly was surprised. I thought the smaller one I could get the longer range, and so that was part of my deciding factor of I wanted to go smaller. I said I was going to go into a sedan again because the kids are a little bit older and I don't have they can hoist themselves in the car now. But ultimately I wanted something that I knew I could go to Monterey and back
Hmm.
without charging. I could go to San Francisco and back without charging. And I didn't want to have the range anxiety. So I went with the bigger one. And really, I mean, the reality is I still got to go to Costco and I still got to pack that back full of the toilet paper and the paper towels. And so,
Yep, all the everyday things. And to your point, it is a true 300. The Germans do, they mean it when they say 300. On the other side of that, when it says zero, it is zero. So where a lot of other cars, you get to zero, you have a little bit of buffer. Don't, not that you're a buffer presser
I'm
anyway.
not a buffer person.
No,
So,
you. So that's another big part of it, though, is if your range is limited and you're not someone that wants to get down into that, like what we like to call the out of spec type of number, where you're down in the single digits or even zero, then it even makes that less. And so you want that big number because you're not going to get down to those single digit percentages.
not going to.
Yep, so that's huge. Man, I appreciate you jumping on the podcast. It's your first time on the show, and I appreciate you filling in and sharing with us. I appreciate you letting me drive the iX. It was a blast. And thank you so much for sharing, guys. Don't forget to check out my video experience with the iX, where I get to play around with it. Again, we'll leave that link somewhere here and there and everywhere. And if you're joining us here after having watched that video, thank you for watching both. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It goes a long way, as well as the engagement. Leave a comment down below what your favorite EV was. If you transitioned from a Tesla into something else, or from something else into a Tesla, tell us why. Share that stuff. It all kind of helps us learn about different folks and what they're looking for, because that's what we're trying to understand. And that's what we're trying to share, are these types of stories, because EVs are now, getting close to 8-9% of sales in the US. We need to keep growing those. And I think not everybody has the same reasons. So, any last comments before we wrap up here?
Just go get an EV. Try it. If you haven't, try it. It's a game changer. It
Yeah.
is. If you love to drive, you love acceleration, that EV is going to give you a kick that you're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah. Butts and seats. Butts and seats does it every time. Well,
Yep.
that's it for Turn Down for What. We will see you on our episode next week when Josh and Jesse are back with us. Thanks for coming along and let us hijack the show, guys. We can't wait to see you back. And until then, to all of our audience folks, thanks for joining us for this one. And my sister, Carolyn, thank you for being a guest. We'll see you on the next one.